Hey everybody, Chris Conlee here again. I am a professional motion picture and television editor, and my wife and I run a small charity called PIFster, the Pay It Forward charity. I just did a little video explaining the tragedy that necessitated what this video is about. Our charity is dependent on a proprietary app because it's kind of tech based. You can look at the other video to understand how that works. And unfortunately, our developer in India got appendicitis and it became critical and he passed away tragically. And that left us in a serious bind where we either needed to, we were basically locked out of our code. We either needed to just walk away from the whole thing and let our charity perish or find another solution. And in 1985 or 86, I studied computer systems engineering. I have a tiny bit of coding knowledge. Never done it professionally, but 2025 seemed to be the year where AI coding, vibe coding was taken off. And I thought, well, maybe I can try it. Let's see if we can rebuild our app using AI. So I took off naively, I guess, thinking I could do that. And in 6 months, I did, but there was plenty of challenges along the way. So this is not a coding video per se, but it's just a kind of a state of the field, state of the play kind of video. It seems like there's two major AI coding IDEs that seem to be vying for the top spot. Cursor and Windsurf seem to be the two major players. And I tried them both. I ultimately ended up deciding on Windsurf. It's free to use. However, it's built on top of Microsoft VS Studio. But in order to use the various AI models, some of them are free, but many of them have a cost involved. So what you do is you just set up you pay for a pro account, and I think it's $15 a month, and for that you get like 500 credits, which you can use any way you want. And you can see that the number of models is quite large. You can go all the way from, there's several free ones, and then it goes all the way up to so let's see here. I'm trying to see if I can find the full, there we go, the full list. Yeah, so it goes all the way from free models to bring your own key models to really cheap models, on up to some really, really expensive models where 20 credits per. And I honestly don't know what that means per se, because a command execution, it can be quite sophisticated and can churn and churn and churn for quite a while. So when it says 20, it's not like you type in, hey, list the code for this segment or something, and it costs you 20 credits. It seems like it's dependent upon some actual amount of work, but I would be kind of BSing you if I told you that I understood it completely. But compared to hiring a human coder to sit with you while you code this stuff, even the most expensive ones seem like pretty much a bargain, I have to say. So what I did was, I knew having developed the app with our developer in India in quite a lot of detail what the app was supposed to do. And I just started chatting with Gemini Pro because I have as a nonprofit, we get a special sweetheart deal on Gemini Google Workspace. And so Gemini Pro comes with that. I started saying, hey, I'm interested in rebuilding my app. And what would be the guardrails I need to set up to do this? And what's in 2025, the sort of best practice for PHP or software development for a website, probably a plugin for WordPress. And it started saying, well, you should probably do a domain-driven development where each functionality kind of becomes its own domain. And then beneath that, you have various services and helpers and things that all kind of align with that domain. And it kind of laid out what it thought the proper, not that it thought was the proper, but best practices in 2025, heading into 2026 for developing an app of some complexity. So I said, great, give me a prompt that I can feed to one of the thinking models in Windsurf to set up a project like this. And this is what I did that I think is the secret sauce for people who might want to build something of some complexity, but want to keep it within the guardrails. Excuse me. I kind of used two AIs and sometimes three different models to bounce ideas off each other. So I would keep a browser open with Gemini and I would discuss things with it. And then when I got ready to prompt for code, I would say, give me a prompt to do everything that we've just discussed. And then I would jump over into Windsurf and I would pick one of the thinking models, like Opus 4.1 thinking. That's super expensive, but it just is sitting here in front of my face. So, but if any of the thinking models kind of reason through the code that you're trying to build, and it's kind of amazing. So I would tell Gemini, hey, I'm going to use a thinking model. Lately, I've been using I don't see where it is here, but Opus 4.5 thinking. There it is. Opus 4.5 thinking, 5 credits, kind of hits a sweet spot. It's very, very detailed in the way it thinks through code without being prohibitively expensive. Anyhow, I would dump prompts that Gemini constructed for me into Windsurf here. This is where the prompts would go, and you would have just a conversation. So, for instance, this is a live project, so I'm not actually needing to do anything. But here's the last bit of work that we just did, I guess, and it would become a collaborative effort where I would use one AI to focus my thoughts, and then I would use that AI to generate a prompt, which I would feed into the Windsurf chat agent, and it would generate code based on that prompt. And then I could take that code and its summary, because every time it finishes something, it will do this. It'll give a basic summary of what it has done, and just copy that, take it over, dump it into Gemini again, say, here's what Windsurf did, or GPT-5.2 just did, and here's the code. Can you review it? And Gemini would review it based on the conversation we had, and it would say, this is a textbook example. of what we discuss. It's perfect, blah, 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 blah. Or sometimes, rarely, but occasionally it would come up and say, hey, there's a logic gap here, or there's a security gap here, or something. And then I would take that and I would run back over and I'd say, I've just run this by Gemini as a single developer. I am using it for another set of eyes, and it's a little concerned about this. Is this legit or is it hallucinating? Because Gemini doesn't actually have eyes on the whole code base the way the Windsurf model does. And then the Windsurf model will chug away a little bit, and oftentimes it'll come back and say, well, Gemini's concerns are valid, but it did hallucinate this aspect of the code, and it said, let me let Gemini know exactly what the code is. It'll often pop out some kind of a little description or analysis explaining where Gemini was a little off base, and then literally I would go back and forth this way, and by doing it, even though I was technically consuming credits in the process of just discussing, I think ultimately it allowed for a quicker iteration to good code, because they would kind of keep an eye on each other and the prompts would be very specific, which I would not have necessarily been able to do. So I could just talk conversationally about what it was I wanted to achieve. And I would constantly remind it that I wanted to use, 2025 best practices, that we wanted to keep our code dry, do not repeat yourself, and that we were using direct injection kind of things to where services would be injected into the code when needed and wired up so that they're, it's just kind of best practice architecture in modern software. And again, it's not that I knew this stuff, it's that in the process of discussing what proper software applications and software architecture look like in 2025, 2026, this is what I was told and what I was led to believe was true. So we would start building one step at a time in this kind of back and forth fashion. And then what I've recently realized is my code became more and more complex. There's certain models have a very large, what they call a context window. And again, there we go. I guess, see if I can find it here. It really doesn't matter, but Sonnet, Claude Sonnet, has like a 1 million token context window right here, 1 million context window. So this is something that I've recently realized as the code became more complex. Even the thinking models would occasionally get bound up in circular reasoning and would start hallucinating things and having some issues, and you kind of have to untangle and work your way out of some corners, which is a drag. And I can't really give you specifics. It's something, as you start working on something with great complexity, you'll eventually, I'm sure, run across. But here's what I found out that helps. I would tell, again, Gemini, because I have pretty much unlimited access to it, I would say, hey, I want to do a complete code audit of my entire software code base for modern best practices, for broken logic, for security holes, for any number of things. And I am going to use I'm going to use Sonnet 4.5 with a 1 million context window. Can you prompt it to do a deep audit of the code base and tell us what needs to be fixed, basically? And Gemini would, generate a really complex, specific prompt geared towards Sonnet's 1 million context window strengths of being able to bring in, basically ingest the entire app at one time. And it really can then thread the needle and start seeing where the code, all the little branches and where everything happens, and then it'll come out with an audit report. And I can probably show you one of those. Let's just go up here, because what I would do is I would keep them. So let's see here. Where is in Docs? Yeah, so here we go. The email system refactor audit. So let's just take a look at that. So it would come out. This is where I was having to go through and look at the entire email system, because every little whip stitch in our app, an email has to get sent either for a magic link kind of return or notification that this happened or that happened, that you made a donation, that your donation was accepted or rejected, your payment was rejected, whatever. So I really wanted to go through and make sure that our email system was consistent, was not spaghetti code, and was modern and maintainable. So Sonnet comes back with a pretty detailed report of what's good, what's bad, where it could use some punching up. And then it actually comes up with iterative steps to improve it. And with a risk report, if you do this, it's likely going to do this, and here's some things that could be security lapses, and really detailed stuff. And it's because that large context window allows it to consume the entire code base at once. It's kind of its superpower. So then I would take that report and I would once again give it back to Gemini and say, okay, well, here's what it found. Now, how do we fix this stuff? Gemini would read it, and Gemini can easily consume this document, even if it couldn't look at the entire code base, and go, okay, great. Well, and it would start doing specific prompts to fix, the first problem or the first batch of problems. And then I would take that, and this is the power of Windsurf. You could come over here and just change what model you're using. So after using the 1 million context window model for this deep dive audit, then I could go back to a thinking model. And I've been using Chat GPT 5.2 high reasoning. I've found it to be really good, or that Opus 4.5 thinking. And Gemini would start giving me the prompts that I could then put into those thinking models to fix the problems that Sonnet, with its 1 million context window, had surfaced. So I was constantly jumping back and forth using 2 and oftentimes 3 AI models to support one another. And it's not without problems, trust me. But for a guy who only has marginal coding skills, I've been able, using this kind of strategy, to build a pretty complex app. And there were several times when I kind of went, I went down a rabbit hole and screwed something up. So I've started over 2 or 3 times. Each time got better than the last. And now I'm so far into it, starting over is not an option, but I've at least got my code base stable. The foundation is good. The architecture is good. I've actually, and I don't think it's the AI tooting its own horn, because I can use the AI to review. I can use one model to review another model's code, and I can say, is this good code? Is this modern code? What's wrong with this? How would this be? How could this be improved? Whatever. And over iterations, I've gotten to the point where one model will give the other model's work some pretty rave reviews. Like, this is very modern. It's very maintainable. It's just good code. So again, like I said, this is not a coding tutorial per se, but it's how one Schmo with marginal coding experience managed to leverage these tools to build something of significance. Yeah. So I mean, that's largely it, I guess. If you've got questions, specific questions, I guess put them in the comments below. And this is an ongoing thing. I continue to work on this code pretty much every day. Something happens or whatever. The other thing I do is I keep the live logs from my website. I bring them down every day and run them through there. I just go, hey, any fires? In fact, I mean, if I were to, I don't know if I have them in here, but just for grins and chuckles, I guess, so you can kind of see this is the kind of thing. This is in production. I mean, this is in development, so these aren't real logs, but these are logs for what's happening in development while I work. So a similar sort of thing happens every night. I bring in the logs from production, and I then come into here and I go, here are the logs from last night. Any fires brewing, something like that. And I'll give it the logs, and it'll go through and do a quick analysis of them. And again, you're burning some AI credits, but it allows me to keep an eye on what's happening in production so that I can kind of stay ahead of it and make sure that nothing is burning down that I don't understand. And if something is happening, which once or twice something is presented in the logs, this is a problem, or it looks like something failed here, then I can quickly jump on it, and I can say, hey, what happened? Why is this doing this? And because it has access to the code, it'll go through, and I've really been able to squash bugs quickly. The other thing that I've done, because it's my code now and I'm not interested in just building code that becomes bloated over time, I instruct the AI constantly to use a fail fast and fix strategy, which is a little aggressive, I guess. But my thinking is I would rather the code just fail loudly and quickly. If something breaks, log it and just move on, or throw a warning or something, rather than have all kinds of layers of fallbacks and patches and things that make old code work. I would rather just boom, no, it's not working, something broke, and then I can jump in and fix it. So that's been my strategy. I prefer, I specifically tell it, fail fast and fix. That's my thing. So as I work with it, it seems to remember. It has its own memories, I guess, and it'll start to know that that's my preference, a fail fast and fix kind of a thing. So yeah, I guess we'll just wait for this to pop out. That GPT-5.2, I should have picked a different model because it's a quote unquote high reasoning model, and as you can see, it really reasons. It thinks and thinks and thinks. Sometimes it can really think. But this is what I was talking about too, where like it's doing all this work, and even though it says 5 credits per thought, you can see that a lot of thought is happening here. So 5 credits is, if it costs 5 credits to do that, I guess it's fine. So what's it say? So basically, we got some chatty logs. Looks like everything's fine. No major, nothing on fire, but some chatty logs. I'm familiar with this. I know this because I get it every day. and my logs are chatty, but I left them that way for right now because I've basically just gone live like a month ago, and I just really want to make sure that I see everything. Eventually, I'll take its advice and turn some of the stuff down so that the logs don't fill up. So that's that. I'm going to shut up. And I guess if you're interested in coding, this vibe coding has become a thing. I would suggest not just exactly vibe coding, because that's what I did initially. And it's a feel good thing. It's felt like, ooh, I can build this whole app. Well, a couple days later, I was starting over, because anything of complexity, you're going to want to know that you have some kind of a plan in place. So I would just recommend, instead of completely vibe coding, you at least have a conversation with one of your models. Build some kind of an architecture, try to put some kind of guardrails in place, and then continually confirm that you're staying within the guardrails, and use one of the other models to enforce that, just to make sure that one of them's not lying to you or telling you, that it's gone rogue and telling you it's doing something when it isn't. So, yeah, just if you have questions, ask them, and if I'm able to, I'll answer. But I just thought somebody might be interested in knowing how you might start and build something of some complexity using AI in late 2025, early 2026. All right. Well, go out and build something cool. And I look forward to your comments. All right.